The Academy showed Earth's deadliest beasts. The human grinned and said, "That's a housepet." The assessment chamber aboard the warcruiser Verdant Descendants smelled like ozone and old incense, the way all council ships did when they wanted you to feel small. Lieutenant Marcus Reyes had decided, somewhere around the third hour of being kept waiting, that he was not going to feel small. He had his boots up on the polished obsidian rail in front of him, arms folded behind his head, and the loose, easy grin of a man waiting for a bus he already knew was running late. Around him, the chamber rose in concentric tiers, each ringed with green-skinned dignitaries of the Verdant Order, dozens of them robed in layered fabrics that shimmered between olive and jade depending on how the light hit. They had ridged brows, long fingers, and the collective expression of a jury that had already decided the verdict and was only sitting through the trial for the ceremony of it. Humanity was on trial. Marcus was the entire defense, the entire prosecution's favorite specimen, and, as far as he could tell, the only one in the room who found any of this funny. At the chamber's apex stood High Assessor Wolfka, and Wolfka had clearly spent a long time preparing to enjoy himself. His robes were the most ornate in the room, threaded with gold filament that traced the history of some conquest Marcus neither knew nor cared about. He moved with the unhurried confidence of a creature that had never once been the second most dangerous thing in a room, and he regarded Marcus the way a curator regards a taxidermied animal, with interest and no fear whatsoever. "Human," Wolfka said, and the translator in Marcus's collar rendered the word with a faint sneer it had learned to reproduce over the past week. "You understand the purpose of this proceeding." "Threat evaluation," Marcus said pleasantly. "You're deciding whether we're worth talking to or worth stepping on. I've been to worse job interviews." A ripple of murmuring moved through the tiers. Somewhere off to the left, a junior assessor made a sound that the translator declined to interpret. "You find this amusing?" Was not a question. "I find most things amusing. It's a coping mechanism. You'd be amazed what it's gotten us through." Wolfka let the silence stretch the way a man does when he believes silence is working for him. Then he raised one long hand, and the center of the chamber bloomed with light. A holographic display unfurled, vast, crisp, wrapping the lower tiers in cold blue illumination. Across the top, letters resolved in the Verdant script, and beneath, in a blocky human alphabet the Academy had scraped from Earth's own broadcasts. Earth, Apex Predators. Threat classification, pending. "We have studied your world," Wolfka announced, and now his voice had the practiced cadence of a lecturer who had given this talk before and knew exactly where the gasps came. "We have catalogued the creatures with which you share it. The Order does not extend citizenship to species that cannot survive their own biosphere. So, let us see what forged you." Marcus said nothing. He let his grin settle into something patient, almost encouraging, the expression of a man watching a child wind up to show him a magic trick. The display shifted. And there it was. The creature that filled the hologram was low to the ground, broad and unbothered. Silver gray along its back, black beneath, with a flat skull and small dark eyes that held all the moral complexity of a loaded gun. The footage the Academy had chosen was, Marcus had to admit, a greatest hits reel. The animal shrugging off a cobra strike and continuing to eat the cobra. The animal turning to face a full-grown lion and rather than fleeing, walking toward it. The animal digging into a beehive with tens of thousands of stinging occupants and simply not caring, its face a study in serene contempt for the concept of consequences. Malivera capensis, Wolfka intoned, and the Latin scrolled beneath the image like a warrant. The Earth honey badger. Observe. The chamber observed. The reaction was immediate and, to Marcus's private delight, genuine. This was not performance. A wave of hissing intakes of breath rolled through the tiers as the footage cycled. The venom immunity, the disproportionate aggression, the sheer refusal of the thing to acknowledge that it was smaller, softer, and vastly outnumbered by everything that had ever tried to kill it. An assessor in the third ring pressed both hands over her mouth. 2 rows behind her, an elderly counselor swayed, gripped his neighbor's shoulder, and sat down very suddenly, robes pooling around him. Somewhere near the back, a junior member of the delegation made a soft, keening sound and then, with a quiet dignity that Marcus almost respected, fainted clean out of his seat and slid to the floor. Wolfka watched it all with the satisfaction of a chef who has plated the dish exactly right. He turned back to Marcus, spreading his hands. "This," he said, "is what shares your world. A creature that does not recognize death as a deterrent. A creature that attacks predators many times its size. That survives poison. That fears nothing." He leaned forward over the rail, and for the first time there was something almost sympathetic in his contempt, the pity of a superior thing for a lesser one. And you evolved beside it. In terror of it, we must assume. So tell us, human. Tell the council what it is like to grow up on a world that produces this. And here it was. The moment the whole week had been bending toward. Marcus could feel the room leaning in, all those green faces waiting for him to break, to admit the fear, to confess that Earth was a hard place and humanity was lucky to have crawled out of it at all. He took his boots off the rail, sat up, studied the hologram for a long, unhurried moment, tilting his head as though appreciating a painting he'd seen 100 times but still found charming. The honey badger on the screen was frozen mid-snarl, teeth bared at a lion 3 times its weight. That, Marcus said. He let the word sit there. Let it fill the chamber. And then he grinned, wide, warm, and absolutely delighted, the grin of a man being shown a photo of someone else's dog. That's a house pet. The translator delivered it flatly, and for a moment nothing happened, as though the sentence needed time to cross some vast conceptual distance before it could land. We put those in petting zoos, Marcus went on, gesturing lazily at the snarling thing. There's a guy in Texas who keeps one named Gary. Feeds it grapes. Puts little videos of it online. The whole planet thinks it's adorable. He spread his hands, mirroring Volthka's own gesture back at him with a precision that was not accidental. You brought me all the way out here, kept me waiting 3 hours and dimmed the lights, to show me a petting zoo animal. The silence that followed was a different species than the one before. The earlier silence had been the council's, a tool they wielded. This one belonged to no one. It was the silence of a room recalibrating, of dozens of very old, very confident minds each independently arriving at the same small, cold thought. He isn't afraid. Volthka's expression flickered. Just once. A hairline crack in the gold-threaded confidence. There, and then smoothed over because a creature that had never been prey did not know yet how to recognize the moment it had become it. He straightened, drawing his robes about him, and produced a smile of his own. Thin. Certain. The smile of a man who has decided the specimen is merely bluffing and that calling the bluff will be its own small pleasure. You are bold, Volthka said, for something so soft. Marcus put his boots back up on the rail. Folded his arms behind his head. Settled in like a man who had all the time in the galaxy and knew exactly how this ended. Show me the next slide, he said. I'm having a great time. Volthka took the bait because creatures at the top of a food chain always do. He flicked his long fingers and the honey badger dissolved into something new, something the Academy had clearly filed under. This one will break him for certain. The saltwater crocodile, Volthka announced, and the hologram rendered a thing of armored bulk and unhurried patience, all teeth and ancient indifference. Footage played, the reptile exploding out of still water to drag a much larger animal beneath the surface, a maneuver of such economical violence that half the council flinched in unison. A predator that has not needed to evolve in over 100 million of your years. Perfection achieved and then left alone. Marcus considered it with the grave attention of a food critic examining a plate he already intended to send back. Solid, he allowed. Real solid. Ambush specialist, patient, waits for you to get comfortable. I respect the work ethic. He nodded slowly. We make luggage out of those. A strangled sound came from the third tier. You. Belts too. Boots. There's a whole industry. Marcus tilted his head. Beautiful animal, don't get me wrong. But you put one anywhere near a human with a mild financial incentive and it becomes a handbag. That's not me being cruel, that's just the honest ecosystem. Next. Volthka's jaw tightened, but he advanced the display. A hunched, shaggy thing filled the chamber now, low and muscular, jaws parted in a sound the footage helpfully rendered in full. The wolverine, he said. Small. Like your house pet. And yet it too drives off creatures many times its mass. It too refuses to yield. Yeah, we noticed. Marcus's grin widened a fraction. We noticed so hard we named a superhero after it. And a college football team. Do you understand what that means culturally? We took the most vicious little murder weasel on the continent and we made it a mascot. Children wave foam replicas of its claws at sporting events. We look at the thing that terrifies you and our instinct is to buy the plush version at the gift shop. The translator delivered this evenly, but the effect on the council was anything but even. A murmur was building through the tiers now, no longer horror at the beasts but a new and colder unease directed at the man discussing them like a man reviewing appliances. Volthka, sensing the room slipping, played what he plainly believed was his final and unanswerable card. The display shifted to something almost anticlimactic, a small, thin-winged insect, magnified until it filled the chamber, its needle proboscis glinting. And this, he said softly, dangerously, is what truly rules your world. Not the large. Not the fanged. The single deadliest creature in your entire biosphere. It has killed more of your kind than every war you have ever fought, combined. So do not pretend, human, that your planet holds no terror for you. This one thing has slaughtered you by the billions. For the first time, Marcus was quiet. He looked at the mosquito with something that was almost respect. Now that, he said, and his voice had dropped the showman's lilt, is a fair point. The mosquito's got a body count. I'll give it that. More than the crocodile, more than the badger, more than anything you've shown me. He let the acknowledgement hang, and the council leaned in, sensing at last the crack they'd been hunting for. Then Marcus smiled again, and it was not a reassuring smile. So we declared war on it. The whole species. Every human alive, versus a bug you can crush with 2 fingers. We drained its swamps. We poisoned its water. We are, right now, editing its children in a laboratory so its grandchildren can't breed. We looked at the deadliest thing on our planet and we didn't run from it. We decided to make it extinct, methodically, on purpose over the course of a century because it annoyed us. He spread his hands. That's the part I'd want you writing down. Not that it kills us. That we took it personally. The chamber was no longer murmuring. It was arguing. It began in the 4th tier and spread like fire through dry grass, sharp, overlapping voices in the clipped cadence of a council that had never once, in its long history, disagreed about a lesser species in front of the lesser species itself. A broad-shouldered figure in dark martial dress rose from the far ring, and the room quieted around him the way rooms do around things that are used to being obeyed. War Marshal Gras. He did not look at Marcus with contempt. He looked at Marcus the way one looks at a fault line. Enough theater, Gras said. The specimen boasts. Boasting is cheap. I have heard 100 conquered worlds boast. He turned to Volfka. This one is not a diplomat, assessor. This one is a soldier sent to smile at us while it counts our exits. I say we do not classify Earth. I say we end it now from orbit before it finishes whatever it came here to start. And Marcus said nothing at all. He simply let Gras' words fall into the room and watched them work, watched the terrified junior assessors flinch toward the exits, watched the moderates recoil from the word end, watched the hawk straighten with grim approval. He had not argued. He had let the most aggressive alien in the room make humanity's argument for it, and the council was now fracturing along the exact lines Marcus would have chosen if he'd been allowed to draw them himself. When at last he spoke, it was mild, almost apologetic, a single stone dropped precisely. I mean, he's not wrong, Marcus offered helpfully. I would be counting your exits. That's just good manners where I'm from. The room detonated into fresh chaos, half of it turning on Gras for provoking the thing, half turning on the moderates for coddling it, and Marcus settled back into his seat, a conductor who'd needed only to lift one finger. Through all of it, one figure had not moved. She sat near the apex, robed in gray rather than jade, older than the others in a way that had nothing to do with the lines of her face. Elder Sithra had not gasped at the badger. She had not flinched at the crocodile. She had spent the entire proceeding watching Marcus and not the screen, watching his hands, his eyes, the exact geometry of that easy grin, and now, as the council screamed around her, she rose and the noise died because wisdom in that culture still commanded a silence that authority had to fight for. You are all asking the wrong question, Sithra said quietly. She looked at Marcus, and there was no contempt in it, and no fear yet either, only the terrible patience of someone who has finally seen the shape of a thing. You show him our monsters and he calls them pets. You threaten his world and he thanks you for the honesty. So I will ask him the only question that matters. She descended one step, her gray eyes fixed on the human. If these, the venomless killer, the ancient reptile, the plague you cannot exterminate, if these are your house pets, human. She paused. Then what hunts you? And for the first time since the chamber's doors had sealed, Marcus Reyes stopped grinning. It was deliberate. He let them see it happen, let the warmth drain from his face by degrees, let the silence stretch until even Gras felt it. When he answered, his voice was soft and gentle, and it carried to every corner of that vast cold room. Nothing, Marcus said. Not anymore. The temperature of the chamber seemed to drop. Sithra did not sit back down. For a long moment, no one in the chamber moved. Sithra remained standing, her gray robes still, her eyes fixed on the human as though he were a puzzle whose final piece had just clicked into a place she deeply wished it hadn't. The rest of the council had gone quiet in that particular way a crowd goes quiet when it has begun, collectively and without discussion, to be afraid. Gras broke it. Of course he did. Nothing, the war marshal repeated, and he laughed, a hard barking sound with no humor in it whatsoever. Listen to it. It has watched too many of its own broadcasts and mistaken them for prophecy. He turned to the tiers, spreading his armored arms wide. This is what we tremble at? A single soft creature, unarmed, alone on our ship, making threats it cannot possibly enforce? I have indulged this circus long enough. He gestured sharply to the shadowed alcoves along the chamber's perimeter, where until this moment Marcus had not bothered to acknowledge the presence of guards. Detain it. Restrain the specimen. We will continue this evaluation with the human in a cell, where boasting costs it something. Armored figures peeled from the walls and began to descend the tiers, weapons held low, movements precise. The council watched, some with relief, some with a dawning, inexplicable dread they could not have named. Marcus did not rise. He did not tense. He glanced down at his own wrist, at a slim band of dark metal there that the Academy scanners had catalogued a week ago and dismissed as a primitive timekeeping device. He tapped it once, the way a man checks the hour when a meeting is running long, and then he looked back up at Graz with an expression of almost fatherly patience. Wouldn't do that, Marcus said. Something in the way he said it made the descending guards slow. Not stop. They were disciplined and Graz was watching. But slow, the instinctive hesitation of predators who have caught, too late, the scent of something wrong about the prey. You misunderstand what's happening here, Marcus went on, and now he did stand, unhurried, brushing an imaginary speck from the knee of his suit. You've been running this evaluation for 8 days. 8 days of showing me pictures, asking me questions, watching how I react. And the whole time, every single one of you, you've been thinking the same thing. We are studying the human. He smiled, and it was not the customer service smile from before. It was thinner. It had edges. You were. You absolutely were. I just want to make sure you understand that the studying went both directions. Volthka, who had been silent since Sithra's question, found his voice. What are you saying, human? I'm saying we broke your translation matrix 4 months ago. Marcus said it as casually as a man mentioning the weather. The one in this collar. The one in every collar you've ever put on a human envoy. It's a two-way device, did you know that? Of course you knew that, you built it. What you didn't know is that a species clever enough to make a mosquito go extinct out of spite is clever enough to turn your own listening device around and point it back at you. He tapped the collar at his throat. Every word this council has spoken near a human in 4 months. Every fleet position you named in passing. Every supply route, every rotation schedule, every offhand complaint about which sector was undermanned this quarter. We were listening. We wrote it all down. The chamber had gone very, very still. The evaluation was never the trap, Marcus said gently. I'm the trap. You didn't summon me. You reeled me in. And I let you because the only way to get a human into the exact center of a Verdant Council warcruiser, past your defenses, into the one room where your entire command structure sits together and talks freely, was to make you want me here. To make you curious. To make you think you were the ones doing the hunting. He spread his hands. Congratulations. You caught me. I'm exactly where I meant to be. This is nonsense, Graz snarled, but there was a new pitch under the words now, and every soldier in the room could hear it. Bravado. You are one creature. One. Whatever you claim to have heard, you are still alone, still unarmed, still. You showed me a honey badger, Marcus interrupted, and you asked me what it was like to grow up next to it. You never asked the right follow-up. You never asked why the honey badger wins. He walked, slowly, to the center of the chamber, into the cold blue light where the hologram of Earth's monsters had hung. The guards did not stop him. No one told them to. Graz's certainty had developed a hairline fracture, and command was leaking out of it. It's not the toughest thing on the savannah. It's not the biggest, it's not the fastest, and it does not have the best weapons. Lions have all of that. Lions are magnificent. Marcus turned in a slow circle, meeting green eye after green eye across the tiers. But the lion has something to lose. The lion does the math. Is this fight worth the risk? And most days the answer is no, so it walks away. The badger never does the math. The badger has decided, at a level deeper than thought, that it would rather die going for your throat than live having backed down. And so nothing wants to be the animal that finds out whether today is the day the badger means it. He stopped, facing Sithra. You wanted to know what hunts us. Nothing hunts us. For the same reason. We are the species that will spend 100 years and every resource we have to exterminate a bug that annoyed us. Imagine what we do to something that threatens us. Now imagine you're the one who has to decide whether to find out. You brought us a mirror, Sithra said softly. It was not a question. Her gray eyes had not left him. The whole time. Every creature you dismissed. You were describing yourselves. There she is. Marcus pointed at her, warm, almost proud. Somebody was paying attention. Yeah, that's the lesson. I wasn't insulting your monsters. I was introducing you to mine. Gras had heard enough. Fire on it, he roared to the guards. Kill the specimen now. The guards raised their weapons. The weapons did not respond. There was a soft, uniform click of triggers meeting nothing, of firing mechanisms querying a control system that was no longer theirs, and then a low chorus of confused alien voices as armored soldiers stared at dead weapons in their hands. High along the chamber walls, the ship's ambient lighting flickered once. Not a malfunction but a signature, a calling card, and shifted just slightly toward a colder blue. And then the warcruiser's external hull display, the vast wraparound view of the void beyond, changed. Where there had been empty space there was now a fleet. They decloaked in absolute silence, which was somehow worse than any alarm. Dozens of angular human vessels, matte and lightless, materializing at point-blank range in a formation that had not drifted into position but had clearly been sitting there, engines cold, for some time. They were not approaching. They were already here. They had threaded past every layer of the Verdant Descendants' defenses and settled into firing positions around the flagship while the Council argued about whether one unarmed human was worth taking seriously, and they had done it so quietly that the first the aliens knew of it was seeing it done. The chamber erupted. Not into argument this time. Into panic. Assessors scrambled from their seats, robes tangling, voices climbing into registers the translator could not keep pace with. Gras was shouting into a command channel that answered him with nothing but static and, faintly, the sound of a human somewhere laughing. Volthka had gone the pale gray of old ash, gripping the rail with both long hands, staring at the fleet that should not exist in a place it could not possibly have reached. And in the center of it all stood Marcus Reyes in the cold blue light, entirely calm. He rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck to one side. And when he spoke again, the polite, easy customer service warmth was finally, completely gone from his voice, for the first time since he'd walked aboard. Okay, he said quietly. Let's talk about what happens next. The panic did not stop so much as it ran out of somewhere to go. There was nowhere to flee to on a ship already held from the inside, no channel to call for help on a network already listening, no weapon left in the room that belonged to the hand that carried it. One by one the scrambling assessors slowed and stilled, until the great chamber held nothing but the low hum of the human fleet's presence pressing against the hull and the sound of several dozen very old, very powerful beings breathing carefully, as though loudness itself might now be dangerous. Marcus let them arrive at the silence on their own. He'd learned a long time ago that a threat you deliver is half as heavy as a threat the other person assembles for themselves. Here's the thing nobody teaches you, he said, and his voice carried without effort now, the easy showmanship replaced by something flatter and far more patient. You look at a species like mine and you think we're dangerous because we're clever or because we're cruel. We're not. Plenty of clever things out there. Plenty of cruel ones. That's not it. He began to walk the perimeter of the light, slow, unhurried, and every green eye tracked him. We're dangerous because we spent our entire existence being the weakest thing on a planet that woke up every single morning and tried to kill us. No claws. No fur. No venom. No armor. Slow. Soft. Easy to break. He spread his hands, gesturing at his own unremarkable body as evidence. By every metric your academy uses to rank a threat, early humans were prey. We were the snack. We were the thing the honey badger would have eaten without slowing down. He stopped beneath the dead hologram projector, where Earth's monsters had hung an hour ago. And we won anyway. The words settled over the chamber like frost. We didn't win because we were strong. We won because we were relentless. Because when something faster than us ran, we didn't give up. We followed it. 4 days. We invented walking until the thing dies as a hunting strategy. Do you understand how unsettling that is, to be the animal that simply does not stop coming? We won because we made fire out of spite and tools out of patience, and when the world gave us predators, we didn't run from them or evolve away from them. We studied them. We learned exactly what they were, exactly how they worked, and exactly where to put the sharp end. Marcus turned, slowly, taking in the full circle of the Council. We are not the apex predator of Earth because we are the deadliest thing there. We are the apex predator of Earth because we are the thing that decided, at the very bottom of the food chain, that we would climb to the top of it no matter how long it took or what we had to become to get there. And then we did. And the whole way up we were smiling. Volthka found his voice, though it had lost all its gold. Then, you have come to destroy us. And here Marcus did something the Council did not expect. He shook his head. No, he said. God, no. Do you have any idea how much work that is? He said it with such genuine weary exasperation that a few of the assessors flinched in confusion. Destroying you would be easy. My fleet is already in position. I say one word into this collar you so kindly built me, and the Verdant Descendant becomes a very brief, very bright event, and everyone back home gives me a medal and I never have to fill out another report. He shrugged. But that's not what apex predators do. That's a rookie mistake. That's what the lion does. Burns the energy, makes the kill, feels good about itself for an afternoon. You know what the smart predator does? The patient one? He leaned against the rail Graz had risen from. It doesn't waste prey. It manages it. It keeps the herd healthy. It culls what it has to and protects the rest because a dead herd feeds you once and a living herd feeds you forever. He smiled and it was almost kind, which made it worse. We're not here to end the Verdant Order. We're here to inherit it. Inherit? Sithra repeated softly. Partnership, Marcus said. Under our terms. You keep your worlds. You keep your fleets, most of them. You keep your seats and your robes and your very impressive incense. And in exchange, when humanity says the galaxy is going a certain direction, the galaxy goes that direction. You become the herd that thrives because the smartest predator in the black decided you were worth keeping alive. You let that hang. Or, you refuse. And you become a slide. A cautionary image in someone else's presentation 400 years from now, when the next nervous little species sits where you're sitting and asks what happened to the Verdant Order. And a human points at the screen and says, they had one chance and they growled at it. The chamber was utterly silent. Graz moved first, but not the way he had before. The war marshal stood, and his broad shoulders were not squared for battle now. They were bowed by the specific, crushing weight of a soldier who has just understood that the war was over before he knew it had begun, that every position he'd have defended was already lost, that the enemy had been sitting in his own command chamber sipping metaphorical coffee while he blustered. He looked at the fleet on the hull display. He looked at the dead weapon still in the nearest guard's hand. And something in the old warrior simply broke, not into fear but into the bleak, clean clarity of a professional recognizing a superior professional. How long, Graz said hoarsely. How long were your ships out there? Waiting. 6 days, Marcus said. You served refreshments on the third. Graz closed his eyes and sat down. It was Sithra who descended. She came down the tiers slowly, her gray robes whispering against the steps, and she did not stop until she stood before Marcus in the cold blue light, close enough to touch. The council watched her, breathless. She was the oldest, the wisest, the one whose judgment the room had always bent toward. What she did now they would all do after. She looked at the human for a long moment. And then Elder Sithra knelt. It was not the collapse of the fainted junior or the defeat of the broken war marshal. She knelt the way one bows to a storm, not because the storm demands it but because pretending you are larger than the storm is how you die in it. It was respect, offered clear-eyed and without illusion, and when she spoke, her voice was steady. I watched you the entire time, she said. Not the screen. I told myself I was clever for it. A faint, rueful sound. You let me. You let me feel clever right up until the moment you needed me to feel small. You were managing me before I knew I was prey. She lowered her head. The Order will accept your terms, human. I will spend what remains of my voice making certain of it. Not because I fear your fleet, though I do, but because any species that can do this patiently, this gently, while smiling. She looked up at him. Is not a species one survives by opposing. It is one you survive by being useful to. I would rather my people be useful than extinct. One by one, throughout the tiers, the council followed her down. Volfka was the last. And when he finally lowered himself, robes and gold and all, he did so with a single question burning through his humiliation, the question of a creature that simply could not reconcile the arithmetic. I do not understand, the High Assessor said. If you are what you say you are, if you are all of this, then why, his long hand gestured helplessly at Marcus's face, why do you smile so? Why the courtesy, the warmth, the endless pleasantness, if underneath it you are the most dangerous thing in the room? A predator hides its nature. You broadcast gentleness. It makes no sense. And Marcus laughed, softly, genuinely, the first fully honest sound he'd made all day. You still don't get it, he said. Think about the little guy. The one you started with. The honey badger. He nodded up at the empty space where the hologram had hung. You know what it does right before it kills something 10 times its size? Nothing. No display. No warning. It doesn't puff up, it doesn't roar, it doesn't rear back and growl. He leaned in and his voice dropped to something almost tender. Growling is a warning. Growling means please don't make me do this. Growling is what you do when part of you is still hoping to avoid the fight. He straightened. We're past warnings. We climbed out of the mud 100,000 years ago and we have not needed to growl at anything since. The smile isn't us hiding what we are. The smile is what we are. It's the face of something that has already done the math, already won the fight in its head, and is just being polite about it while the rest of you catch up. He turned toward the great chamber doors, which were already sliding open, human boots audible in the corridor beyond now, his people coming to formalize what he'd already finished. Oh, Marcus said, pausing. Almost forgot. Since we're all being honest. He reached down to the pack at his feet, the one the Academy scanners had waved through 8 days ago as personal effects, and unlatched it. Something inside stirred. And then, with the unbothered confidence of a creature that had never once in its life done the math, an actual living silver-backed honey badger climbed out onto the deck of the Verdant flagship, blinked at the assembled council of a galactic empire, and hissed. The nearest assessors recoiled with a shriek, scrambling backward over their own robes. Marcus scooped it up under one arm, where it settled, radiating contempt for everything it could see. His name's Gary, he said. He doesn't do the math either. You two are gonna get along great. And grinning, he carried his house pet out into the ship that was now his.